to the weather, won't there? There'll be, some of the roads are passable, some are not passable. So we'll just have to go with it. So we're happy putting that down on the apologies. Bit of discretion here.
Chair, I've just had a message from the external auditors. They're about 20 minutes away. They've got the last items. So yeah, I can always present if they can't make it.
Okay then. So we'll declarations of interest to declare? Non-declared? Thank you. And now to move the minutes, which are on page 3 to 10 of the meeting on 16th of June. As I wasn't there, and it'll need 2 people to move them. Okay, thank you. We're agreed. So moving on to 4, the revenue capital Prudential code monitoring. And Dave, you're going to do that.
Thank you, Chair. So this presents the revenue and capital monitoring up to the end of August 23. So the last report that we had to this authority was only up to the end of April. So it was some time ago. The underspend position, which is shown in table 1 on 2.1, shows an underspend of 1.4 million, which is just a small amount higher from the previous report, which was 1.3 million. So underspend represents 3% of the total budget at this point in time. As previously reported, the reasons for the underspend are largely due to a certain number of things. So whole time pay, due to being slightly under-established at the moment, is underspending by about 460,000. On-call pay is underspending by 266,000, which is largely down to a reduction in the number of activity. If you remember last year, we had all the fires in the summer, which increased activity, and we usually do it on an average, so it did put the budget up a little bit. I would say our estimates didn't include big flooding this week, so that may change for the next meeting that we have. Interest rates that we've received on our investments, we hold about. You want to come and sit down, Suzanne? Come and sit over here. Thank you. Thanks. Welcome. We've only just started. So, as I was saying, we hold about £10 million worth of investments. So the interest that we receive on those with the increase in interest rates has improved our income to £236,000 excess to what we expected. If you remember last year, the amount we received in income was less than 20,000. So you'll see what a big difference that's made to those interest rates. And then due to the slippage with the fire appliances last year, MRP has underspent by £200,000. So it's a number of things that are sort of not any excess in one budget area. It's a number of things that have contributed to that underspend. So when we set the budget, we were required to allocate £400,000 of reserves to balance the budget. And at the time, we did say that if we could, we would not take that. So I'm proposing some allocations for the underspends, but firstly, we're proposing not to use that use of reserves at year end, providing the situation continues as it is at the moment. So on 2.2 and 2.3. You'll see how we're proposing to allocate some of those underspends. So you'll be aware that we're trying to recruit a significant number of whole-time staff at the moment, and in order to facilitate that, we're suggesting some allocations to help us improve our training, our facility, and HR so that we can do the recruitment with a bit more efficiency. And with the increase in numbers, it's quite a challenge on the HR team at the moment. So 92,000 we were proposing just to allocate that to try and make that process a lot easier and better for the applicants that are applying. So 2.3 looks at some other areas that where we've had some issues that we need addressing that have come to light since the budget. We've had, with inflation, a lot of the maintenance costs and other costs relating to capital programme have increased quite significantly, which we didn't anticipate when we set the budget. And also there are some key projects that we'd like to deliver a bit more quickly, partly because we can bring them forward and it makes more sense to do so, and also because with the inflation we've got some good, some of the costs that have been fed back to us are quite advantageous, and we think that they will increase if we leave them. So for those reasons, we've proposed some additional expenditure set out in 2.3 to the value of 835,000. So some of that relates the mobilising system, 100,000, the server costs. Now we've allocated that contract out, we're in a bit clearer position of where we are on the funding of that. It does require some work to be done internally to house the servers that we now know that we need, because it's not in the cloud. So, has anybody got any questions on those areas?
I have on one area, which is page 13, 2.4.
Yeah.
A bit of clarification, if I may. I understand and approve about the Building Safety Act requiring an extra officer to assist that group, and it says, quote, "The authority is receiving grant funding from the Home Office to cover the cost," which I presume the whole cost, "of an additional fire safety inspecting officer who will assist the BSR. I don't, forgive me, understand why approval is sought for 38,000 environment to create an expenditure budget for the salary costs and an income budget for the grant. What's the 38k all about then?"
That's the grant that we've got come in to help facilitate this work.
From the Home Office?
Yes.
Okay.
But because we're increasing the budget, we require authority, because it's going into pay as well, we require authority from the committee to do that environment. So it's more a technical environment really.
No.
But yeah. So,
It's a methodology to get the
Yes.
accountancy to work. Okay.
To get the budgets in the right place so it doesn't
So-
keep showing an anomaly.
Yeah. But no cost to this fire authority
No,
for that extra
no,
position?
no.
Fine, thanks.
Okay, Callum.
For the RMS server costs,
Yeah.
was this 100,000 expected in the back of your mind, or is this something there's a sudden shock?
It's not.
Are we
It's
expecting any more of these surprises?
potentially. The mobilising system, when we set the budget last year, we knew that Leicestershire were pulling out, and we had a £2 million budget in the capital programme for the server. We knew from talking to other authorities that have been out to contract that we knew that the costs were increasing and that wasn't going to be enough. So the anticipated cost of the contract was higher, and the fact that it was split between ourselves and Derbyshire rather than the three authorities has made that higher as well. So if you remember, was it Policy and Strategy Committee, or was it? No, it was at Fire Authority, the last Fire Authority meeting. We approved an extra 970 in the capital programme, but we're still working through some of the other bids that we know that we've got that will contribute to the project as a whole. So we haven't got all of the costs yet for those, but we do know that because the system is going to be based on-prem, the servers on-prem rather than on the cloud, that we will need some additional facilities to be built into one of our stations. So those are provisional costs at the moment. They're not particularly accurate, but we know that we will need something. So those costs may change, and we still have the lots in the contract that the lots in the whole project that we still need to contract out. So it could be subject to change with those as well.
Yes, also on that page in the table above, it refers to additional HR staffing of 20,000. What is that then? Is it extra hours, an extra person? Why do we think we need it?
Well, if I can, the last time we went out for whole-time recruitment, we got 600 applicants in 2 days. So it requires significant, it just gives you an idea, and all of those applicants need processing, and they need assessing, they need to be, do preliminary sifting. So it just takes such a lot of work when they go out to whole-time recruitment, and the team is under a lot of pressure for other matters at the moment as well, with the pensions information that they've been required to provide, and developments for iTrent, and which we're trying to improve some of the systems in the team as well. So they're just under-resourced and not able to resource, they don't have the capacity to deal with the recruitment. So that's what that funding is for.
Okay. Can I just ask on the BA, actually, the BA wash facilities, is that in each station, or do we procure that out to somebody to do?
2 stations, Canada, aren't we? I think we're setting up thorough washing facilities in 2 stations, and then we are setting up a system to collect kit that needs washing and take them to those stations.
So it's in-house, it's not going
It's
out
in-house,
to
yeah.
somebody? Yeah, fine. Okay, well, to answer any further questions, I'll meet the recommendations on page 11, which is a note, and then there are 3 bullet points below, so move those.
Actually, I've got one other, sorry, on the next page, on page 14, this was obviously written at the time, I'm referring to the fuel costs, and this was obviously written at the time when, even though it wasn't less cheap, it was less expensive than now. I assume that we are gearing up and expecting ourselves to be having significant increases in
that may not
fuel
show.
prices. So it's rather ironic that that part of the
it
report.
is. Yes.
So
that
I
may
presume we're
increase. They do fluctuate quite significantly, and in fact we've done some analysis through the finance network and shown how much people different services are putting in for fuel increases for next year, and they're quite significant. So we'll be adjusted when we next bring a
next
report.
will be interesting, won't it?
So I thought it was just commenting on the underspends in particular.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, right.
So I
Can
don't
I
think
just-
we've had a recommendation.
So I just run through the capital
Yes, go through capital.
programme quickly. So
So I know there's a bit of chunky bit about the estates.
Yeah.
yes, there is. All right. So the capital programme has, although expenditure has got off to a slow start, and expenditure isn't significant at the moment, it's largely due to the largest projects that we've got relate to the 17 appliances that we've got coming in. So the chassis are now ready to be built on. So we'll be paying for those shortly. So that's quite a significant chunk that will come out. And in fact, we may even overspend a little bit on the chassis, on the appliances. But there are other contracts within the vehicles. It's just been really difficult to predict when they're going to come in, and things are changing almost every week when we call them. So there may be some areas of underspend in there towards the end of the year, but we're not in a position to say, because it could be March or it could be April when things are being delivered. And then there's the mobilising contract as well, which is which I mentioned earlier, 970,000 we've built into the programme. One of those milestone payments is due to be paid mid-March, so that could well slip into next year depending on how progress is made. So there are several of the big expenditure items that they should be coming in either March or April, so it means that I'm not really able to, I don't want to slip anything until we know for definite on those. So other than that, I think I wasn't going to make any further points unless you've got anything you wanted to ask about. Yeah.
So 2.31.
Joint headquarters, yes.
Yes. So I presume it's the old headquarters rather than joint.
Yes. Yes.
And I suppose
That-
I'm not sure how much you can actually say in this realm, but do you have any explanation as covered. Why? Or
It's, I think, I
I'm not sure
don't
what
really.
I'm not sure what we can talk about in public, but the organisation that was looking to buy it, it seems decided not to,
yeah.
or
Has
perhaps couldn't raise capital. We're not entirely sure.
Okay.
So
So we get
we are
reports on
looking
that
at
to
other
do.
options,
Yeah.
and something will be bought. So I don't think it
Buy
will be.
something.
Yeah, it's not going to cause a great delay.
Okay.
Shall we say?
Yeah.
So the other question, I think, is, in terms of the electric charging points.
Yeah.
I think we should probably.
Yes, it was, because again, and apologies, it might be because I'm still quite new to this, but a bit of clarification on 2.30, the electric charging points. I see that you've had a grant from D2N2 for 4 sites.
Yeah.
So what are the implications for other sites? Are we planning to perhaps have such points in other sites? And also, I'm not quite sure who they're for. So who's going to use these electric charging points? Is it for staff or is it for
A lot of
public to come along?
our light fleet vehicles are all electric
Yeah.
now,
Oh, right.
or
Or
hybrid.
hybrid. Okay.
So they will be used for that, and then there is a charging facility that's rechargeable for staff.
Right, so
So-
staff could use them, but they'd have to pay
Yes.
whatever the cost of
Yeah.
charging up is.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that's...
And obviously, where we get the opportunity and we've got grants, it's wise to put them in. And when we're doing new builds, we're factoring those in because it's the way forward in the future.
So is it fair to say then that the sites we've got that may not fall under this, is it because it's physically not possible or just...
I would assume, I don't know a great deal about the grant, except I would assume that if we could have got more grant, we would have taken it. I would assume that it would have addressed a particular problem at those stations.
Yeah.
So we do have electric charging points across all of our buildings.
Oh, right.
Now, so and certainly they've been built in at headquarters, and when we're building new stations, they're certainly being factored in, and we have retrospectively put them in other stations as well. So.
And we've drawn down grant over the years,
Yeah.
opportunities according to what the grant criteria have been. So, for example, there was a point where we were able to bring city-based stations some grant in because the grant was coming through across the city boundary.
Right.
So we've got our eyes open the whole time to look for opportunities around this.
They make the most of them.
Yeah.
It's also the availability. We've been waiting at Gedling for one on Country Park, or 2
Yeah.
on there, and we're 2 years on. We've got all the boxes there, everything's there. In the city park, no
But
equipment.
no equipment.
There's no equipment, and it's because everybody's going along. Excuse me, everybody's going along and buying the new cars. I don't think there's been much thought as to how the rollout is.
Yeah, it's the infrastructure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and getting them in.
Quite a familiar problem.
But just on that point as well, of course, we do have a commitment around decarbonisation.
Yeah.
And this all forms part and parcel of our steps towards that. And a piece of work is being prepared that is looking at what our strategy will be in order to reach that goal over the next decade or so.
If I just move finally on to the Prudential reporting, you'll see on table 4 in 2.44 where we are on all our Prudential indicators. I'll just point out, similarly to the last report, that borrowing at present is higher than the capital financing requirement. And that's because in order to take advantage of interest rates before they went up, we borrowed for the capital programme, and we are due to be repaying a loan in March, a £3 million loan, which will bring that back in within the capital financing requirement by the end of the year. So that's a sort of purposeful, slightly over borrowed at the moment, but it was to take advantage before the interest rates went up. So other than that, I think...
No further questions? So I'll move back on the page 11, which is no contents and the 3 bullet points below. Can you second that? Second. Thank you. Agreed. All agreed. Thank you. So we're going to carry on with corporate risk, or do you want to do the audit?
We're on the audit. Oh, sorry.
No, it is on corporate risk next. It's-
Oh.
Yeah.
Are we on the risk
Yeah.
register first, or the?
Yeah, we'll do that.
That was the
Yeah.
question.
My
First,
colleague
do the audit
over
first.
the audit has got to swim back home.
He might like a cup of coffee before he
fine,
goes.
thank
Okay.
You're all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll carry on to the audit.
Yeah, corporate
Thanks,
risk.
Matt. Yeah, thank you. That's on page 29.
Good morning, everyone. So Matt Revel, I'm here today to present the corporate risk report. And actually, hopefully, by the end of it, you'll see it's a pretty positive report. If members cast their mind back 12 months to this very report coming, we're at a very different time. We had a certain degree of financial uncertainty. There was a potential threat of industrial action, which was leading to things like workforce relation issues or potential. We had pensions uncertainty. And we had a lot of pressure on the fire sector due to various reports that were in the public domain. So the report 12 months ago presented that there was a lot of potential risk facing the authority. It was a decision of this group then to actually take this report to full authority and actually decrease the reporting period to 3 monthly. We stabilised earlier this year in April, and it was actually a recommendation of this committee that we go back to 6-month reporting. So this is the first 6-month report from that. But you can see in the period of 12 months, we've got a very different landscape, positively, I might add. So in terms of where we are, this report presents the corporate risk register, and that's in full in the appendices. So it's to give you an overview of what we've got in there and how we're managing our risk. Within section 2.4, there is, if you like, an executive summary of the titles of risk that we have on the corporate risk register at the moment, but also you can see where there's been changes from the previous reporting period. And if we look at that specifically, 2.5 talks about where are the very high risk, and they're the ones we're obviously concerned about, they're the ones we actively monitor and we ask you to scrutinise, and they're the ones that go into our sort of a key when we talk about business planning and resourcing. Now I'm pleased to report that in April we had 3 areas deemed very high. They were our ability to set a balanced budget, the firefighters pension scheme and mobilising, and this report reports to you that we've only now got 1. So in terms of the 2 that have been reduced, one is the budget position. So we're in a stronger position than last year, and that's largely due to the £5 increase in council tax, which generated an additional £1.6 million of funding. That's been able to stabilise that area. And in terms of the firefighters pension scheme, that's also shown reduced risk levels, and this is due to the legislation for both McLeod and Matthews remedies being passed in Parliament, and our work on that being able to continue. There is still one area which is reported as very high, and that's under the category of mobilising. So members will be aware that this is effectively a sort of 3-pronged work stream. We're looking at our current mobilising system provider, we're looking at tendering for a new provider and actually installing a new command and control system, and also the disaggregation of Leicestershire Fire and Rescue Service from our current agreement, current arrangement, sorry. That area is still reporting high, but since the report was drafted, there are a couple of positive things which I'd like to just raise. One is we have now awarded the contract for our new mobilising system, which is a key milestone, and there will be communications around that today. So that's a really key milestone on the delivery of that. And our current provider was under the supervision of the French courts, and they're now not, which gives them, I suppose, gives us much more assurance about them going forward as well. So I am hoping, that next time this report comes to you, we may be under the threshold of that very high for the first time in a long time. In terms of the broader picture, we're obviously not just looking at the risks we've got, we're looking at new risks and emergency risks, and we constantly have our eyes open to that, and I'm pleased to report that we've identified no new risks to what was presented on the register last time. And I'm also very pleased to report, as well as scrutiny from committees like this, we have formal scrutiny as part of our audit programme. This has been reported before, but I just want to just replay one of the specifics. So in terms of the audit programme we had in 22-23, they looked specifically at risk and gave a rating of substantial assurance. And one of the things that are reported are risks that are managed closely, including through the corporate risk register, which is actively managed, reviewed, updated and reported. Substantial assurance is the highest level of assurance that can be awarded in any specific area. So certainly as a team and a service, we were very proud of that. It gives you some assurance in terms of our internal risk management mechanisms. So, short and sweet, but quite happy to take any questions on the various areas.
Thank you. Questions?
No, it's all
No?
All good.
No, I think that says it all in 213. So no questions, I move the recommendation, which is in page 29. And that's to endorse the services approach to managing the key risks to the authority and note the most recent version of the corporate risk register attached, which is appendix H. So I move that to the second. Yeah, second. Thank you. Agreed. We are agreed, thank you. Moving on to item 6, which is the meter bit of the external audit.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Just by way of introduction, I'm Hassan Rahim, audit partner with EY, responsible for the external audit. So we've got our audit plan on the agenda, which we issued towards the end of September. Just kind of giving a bit of context in terms of where we are on the audit, as well as having issued the audit plan. We have been undertaking our audit of the 21-22 financial statements. Currently our engagement, so my engagement manager for the actual audit has been taken ill and has been signed off of work, and she's also kind of pregnant at this moment in time, so that's some kind of complications. So just anyway, at this moment in time, she's doing well, but that means that with her being signed off of work, we're now needing to identify another manager from the team in order to take on the responsibilities for concluding the audit. Otherwise, we would have been looking to have been reporting by the end of October on our particular audit. So just going back to the audit plan, section 1 of the report provides an overview of our audit strategy. Within section 1, it identifies some of the risks that we've identified during our planning procedures. So these are audit risks and risks to our audit of the financial statements. We highlight within section 1 where there's a change in from the prior year or increase in our audit focus. The first two risks, which are outlined on page 5 of the report, which is page 64 of your pack, the risks of fraud in revenue recognition and the risk of misstatements due to fraud and error may be familiar to members of the committee, so they are risks that we identify across our audit base. They're presumed risks under international standards on auditing. The third one, in relation to valuation of pensions liability, we identify it as a significant risk because it's a large entry within the financial statements. It's also a disclosure which is underpinned by assumptions and estimates based on the work of the scheme's actuaries, and as we do place a significant kind of looking at the basis for the actuarial assumptions. We also engage our own actuaries to provide us with as an audit team with assurance in terms of the disclosures which are made in that area. And the fourth risk there on the page, the valuation of land and buildings. So that's again a material disclosure within the financial statements, and again disclosures which are based on estimations in relation to the work of your internal of your valuer in terms of the valuations which are reported within the balance sheet, and we kind of look at the work of the valuer in terms of whether those assumptions and the methodology which is used is appropriate, and if relevant, we also engage with our own internal valuation experts to again provide us with assurance. And moving on from the page, the next risk which is identified is the valuation of the pensions liabilities, and that's specifically in relation to the firefighters' pension scheme. So that summarises provides a summary of the risks and some details in terms of the risk. Within the section 1 also outlines the materiality levels and that we'll be using in terms of undertaking our audit. So the first figure there, the planning materiality level, that's the overall materiality that we're applying in relation to come to a view as to whether the accounts present a true and fair view. The performance materiality level is a level which drives our testing strategy, and the audit difference threshold, so that should be £74,000 that we'll be reporting. So any differences above £74,000 will be reporting to the committee. There has been some changes in the team, so I've taken on responsibility for the audit from Neil Harris, and Jess did have assume engagement management responsibilities for the audit. So just provide some details of those changes within the executive summary there. And then we also, on page 8 of the report, your page 67, again provide a summary of the scope of our audit, what our audit is intended to cover. And on the following page, your page 68, provide an outline of our value for money responsibilities. So the work that we undertake in terms of value for money, it is based on the criteria which is issued by the National Audit Office, and we look at the arrangements that organisations have in place against the criteria which are defined within the guidance issued by the NAO. On section 2 of the report provides more details on those risks which I've run through and which are summarised within section 1. It outlines what the risks are and the procedures that we'll be undertaking in response to those risks. And then within section 3 of the report, we provide more details in relation to our value for money responsibilities, and again the planning procedures that we undertake and the identification of risks in respect to the criteria which are defined. The other parts of the report which I want to bring to your attention are within section 5, providing more details on the scope of the audit, and then on to section 7, the timeline. So we were, as I mentioned earlier on, in terms of timelines, we were looking to have a position where we're completing the audit by the end of October, but due to kind of issues with our audit team, as I've just highlighted earlier on, that timeline now will need to be revisited. And then within section 8 of the report, we confirm that having undertaken our planning procedures, that there are no issues which impact on our overall independence, and so there are no kind of issues that have been identified that affects our independence in terms of undertaking the external audit. So I will pause there, but happy to take any questions that members may have.
Okay, thank you. Questions, Tom?
Yeah. So in terms of, we'll have two questions. The first is with respect to the timetable. So you said end of October to complete. Do you have an idea on when that's going to be?
So just going through the process of looking at, so at this moment in time, all of our, across the teams, all our teams are allocated on other engagements. I've now identified an engagement manager who can pick up from where Jess has left off, and it's now looking to see in terms of her capacity and timetabling in terms of the other engagements that she's working on, how we can rearrange things to enable Leslie now to pick up on the points where Jess had got to, and complete so a lot of the work, the work has significantly been done, so it's now subject to our review processes, and depending on any kind of issues that might arise as part of those review processes, there may be some additional work that might need to be required. But having identified the individual, it's now a case of trying to identify when within that person's kind of current portfolio that we can look to get her in to finish off this work. So I'll just need to going through that process at this moment in time in terms of what that then means for ultimately getting the audit completed. So haven't got a firm date for you yet, but we are working on that at this moment in time, and I'll need to liaise with Becky after this meeting, having identified the individual, as to what that means in terms of timetables. But I'm also aware that Becky's going to be moving on as well.
I suppose the second question is regarding the financial implications of the report itself. Again, there will be further increase related to the areas where additional work may be required. So these additional charges. I'm just wondering if you have a scope on how much the additional charge is going to be.
Not at this stage, because the work hasn't yet been completed. I mean, if members want, what I can do is after the meeting come up with communicate a range of what the additional charges might be.
Yeah, just
Worst case scenario would be good.
yeah, that's the main thing really.
Kind of linked to that, actually, is on page 67, where we're looking at the effects of climate-related matters on financial statements. We're all talking about, and it's a good day for talking about climate, isn't it? But I think you've partially answered that, because you're going to come back with figures, but can we assume then there's likely to be an increased cost as a result of the extra work that's needed to monitor what's happening with respect to climate change? Not quite sure how that will all work.
So I think in terms of, we're just on section page 67, we're just highlighting that as an issue at this moment in time. We don't actually have a responsibility to review kind of climate change responses by authorities within the corporate sector. There's a lot of reporting which organisations are doing in terms of climate change and sustainability. That may well start to kind of increase within the public sector as well going forward. So just kind of highlighting that as an issue, but it's not specifically an issue which will result in more work for our 21-22 audit, where there'll be additional fees for that particular topic.
But maybe in future years, who knows? Okay, thank you.
More comments? No. That's probably to you. I know there aren't enough auditors. We've seen that. There aren't enough nurses, there aren't enough doctors and all that sort of thing. But for us, like you were saying about the extra costs, I am concerned for somebody watching this that we were on a low sum 2 or 3 years ago. Now it's gone up. Where's it going to stop? Have we got any idea on?
I think as
because we're basically a lay people around here. You're the professionals at doing that sort of work. But it seems there's some massive increases that have come in, and how we absorb them in our budget.
I think as a firm, we've communicated probably going on to 2 years ago in terms of Janet Dawson, who was our partner who's responsible for our government and public sector assurance team across the UK, kind of sent a letter to audit chairs and Section 151 officers outlining the challenges facing the audit market, outlining the position in terms of the regulatory environment, outlining some of the issues that more complex issues such as commercial transactions which local authorities are getting into, which kind of creates more demands on the external audit, as well as highlighting the kind of some of the capacity issues and the attractiveness of the audit profession, and kind of setting out that, in our view, the scale fees which the PSA, which were in place across the board under the PSA's audit framework, were not sufficient to address the those increased needs. I mean, we've been quite vocal and in terms of highlighting that as an issue, and outlining the need for increases in audit fees. The moving forwards under the new PSA contract, so they went through a kind of a procurement exercise, and as a result of that, there have been increases within the audit fees for the 23-24 kind of audits under the new contract. And I think if I kind of move away from the local government audit market, I think typically the audit of Nottinghamshire Fire and Rescue Service, our overall budget will be in the region of 1,400 hours in order to complete the audit. As a firm, we're looking for having a blended audit rate in the order of £120 per hour. So I think that will probably give you some context as to where we think the fee should be, and that's the level of fees that we're kind of having discussions on in terms of the organisations that we audit across the whole of our.
So it looks to be levelling out from these costs, because the escalation was like that, wasn't it?
There have been some under the new that procurement exercise. I think there's been a rebasing and kind of relevelling of the audit fees across the sector.
Yes.
Thank you, Becky.
So, Ernst Young, we've got 22-23 the last year that EY will be auditing for us, and then for this current financial year falls under a new contract, and the fees for that are looking to across the whole of the public sector have significantly increased. So the baseline when the contract was let for this 5 years that are just coming to an end was £24,000, and although they have increased and we are seeing significant increase, we're expecting the next contract, the cost will be in the region of £95,000, to give you an idea of the impact of that. And that's nothing to do with EY, so I'm not going to sort of, because we'll be moving
To be fair
across.
to the government then, Becky, just interrupt you, we've had some help, haven't we, from the government towards this? I know all the auditors have got this problem.
Yes, they have awarded some additional funding to help absorb some
Is
of
that
the
a
additional
one-off, or is it going to
costs.
continue into the next 2 to 3 years?
We wait to see as part of the funding settlement. I think it'll be built into that now, because it's in the future costs. So.
Further questions? No? Okay, then we'll move the recommendation, which is page 57, and that's to note it. So I'll move that from the chair. Seconded. Thank you. Before we finally close, I'll just thank Becky, because it's her last star appearance, Becky.
Yes.
Before you move
Got
off
stuck in
to
traffic as
pastures
well.
new, wishing you
First time
well.
I've ever
Actually,
been late.
as it said, and lots of people said, I miss working with you, because it's nice having a good relationship with people. You can sit down, you can chew the cud, and then you can, I think we all thoroughly understand it. Say we're from the lay person's background, which we are, but we've been really appreciating. I hope your successor is as good as you.
I'm sure they will be. I'm sure they
Good luck
will
to you
be.
and the family.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Much, and thank you to all of you. It's been a real pleasure.
So we'll end the meeting there. Thank you.